Welcome to No Camps Podcast. I'm Sunny G.
I'm Akash.
I'm Jason, and here at the No Camps Podcast, we talk about movies, television, and a variety of other topics. And today we're talking about Westworld, Season 2, Episode 5? Was this 5 or 6?
6.
Phase Space.
That's a cool name.
Phase Space, yeah. I have no idea what that means, even after watching the episode twice. But just getting into our initial thoughts. Sunny, what did you think of this episode?
Ultimately kind of boring, but we started getting some answers, and the preview for the next episode looks really sick. So I guess I'm waiting for next episode.
Again,
as usual. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen the previews for the next episode.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man, this episode was so for me. Overall, the plot kept moving along, but I felt like a lot of the scenes didn't make sense in the way they were shown on screen. For example, I felt like they could have just bookended the whole Japanese world last episode instead of taking us out of this episode to kind of tell that story. I felt that timing and placement of those scenes didn't really work well with the whole vibe and the flow of the episode. Again, like I said, a lot of answers or questions being answered, but again, the way the show was fit, we can get into it as we go scene by scene or whatever plot line, but a lot of the way the show was edited or the flow of it kind of pulled me out, and I didn't really enjoy it as much as the previous episodes.
I mean, overall, I liked it. I enjoyed it. And I mean, so far, I look at this season, 6 episodes in, as like it's been 2 seasons. There's the first 3 episodes, which have been underwhelming. And then the second 3 episodes, which have been a little bit more exciting or more interesting.
This is probably the weakest of all 3, the second set, right?
I agree. Yeah. So it's like number 3 out of this. Yeah. So, but overall, I mean, it's kind of bringing all the stories together. I kind of view this episode as just more of a plot device. It's just kind of, setting the pieces up further, hopefully for the next few episodes. But, after I watched this episode, I started to realize this really is a different season from first season, and it's not a bad thing. Again, like the first season was just kind of this mysterious, interesting world about finding consciousness, and now, it's kind of turning into something else, but I think they're taking it in a good direction. They're picking up, and the pessimism that I had early on, it's now kind of fading away. So I think overall they're on the right track. I don't know about you guys though. Did you notice that the introductory scenes, the cut scenes from last episode that they showed before the episode started? It was kind of weird, right? It was a little off. They played like weird music. It just didn't seem. Yeah,
it was solely like a percussion. And the only dialogue spoken was just "Hey, Dad" from the daughter saying to the man in black. Everything else was just like rapid cuts. Actually, I thought it was super awesome. Like when I saw it, I looked at Loki and I was like, well, that is an efficient way of recapping everything you need to know about, the show going into the episodes. I love that part.
Yeah.
Me too.
Cool. Just always throwing a curveball, which is kind of fun about this show. All right, but getting into it. So we opened with Bernard talking to Dolores and kind of continuing the conversation that we saw before with him saying, "You frighten me sometimes, and I'm frightened by what you might become." Bernard then says that he has a choice to make between the unknown and an end. Dolores interrupts him and says that Arnold didn't question whether or not he had the right to end himself and Dolores, but whether or not he should. And Bernard gets very confused, and Dolores freezes all his motor functions and says that this has been a test that they've done before, and they're testing for fidelity. So that was a really cool introductory scene. And
it freaked me out a little bit.
It's freaky, right? And it's now making, like, right then in that moment, I'm just questioning, well, what the fuck? So all of these scenes, have they been before, during, or after? Like, what's going on now? And it's really puzzling. What was y'all's reaction to this?
I couldn't fit it into context until I rewatched the episode. But upon rewatching it, I have a theory. Can I share it with y'all?
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Never mind.
Say it again.
I was like, can I guess what your theory is? But
Yeah, go for it.
this is just like a flashback from what he's seeing inside his head at the end of the episode. Like, is he inside the cradle during these scenes? Is that what you think is happening?
Yeah, but beyond that. Yeah,
Oh,
so
okay,
pretty much,
continue.
yeah, so I think this is just them playing with time and showing us something that we might see later, or something that just happens later but is done off screen, where, yeah, he's in the cradle. And one thing to notice is that most of the episode is shot in like a full widescreen format.
Yeah.
But this scene and then the scenes where Bernard, we know that he's inside the cradle, like his consciousness is in the cradle. They're all edited with a more like theater format, or like cinematic aspect ratio. You know what I'm saying? They have the bars on the top and the bottom. Right. So I take that to mean that, yes, this is in the cradle, but the way she says that, like she's setting up this experiment for fidelity is, you know, obviously what we saw with Jim, I think is his name, right?
The father-in-law?
The father-in-law. Actually, it's maybe not Jimmy. It's something
Jim
else.
Delos. Yeah.
Oh, is it Jim Delos? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we're seeing her do this for Bernard, because we know that Bernard is a clone, right, of Arnold, and Bernard might at some point need to be told who he is in order for him to be used for some purpose, right? The same way that Jim, like that. Him having the same conversation was a trigger that like that body needs to be gotten rid of, and this could end up being the same thing for Bernard. And as we later see, like, you know, someone comes back from the dead, it's their consciousness, I think, who it's helped set this up, and Dolores was just like the proxy in these kind of cradle visions for making that experiment or setting that up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Kind of. I'm a little lost, but it's okay.
Okay. Well, we can get back to it when, you know, we get to the end of the episode and the big spoiler is revealed.
Yeah. It's just interesting. I mean, if they are testing for fidelity, like what we saw with Jim, it's just repeating the same scene over and over again. So it's just interesting that this is the scene that they're choosing to do the test on, you know. I just find it kind of funny. And Bernard said, the quote was, "I think I have a choice to make something I've been wrestling with." And I think that's just kind of indicative of his character throughout the episode, too.
So I think the thing is that is not actually Bernard so much as it is the clone consciousness of Arnold.
Right.
And there are probably multiple clones of him, like throughout the park's past, made by Ford, I guess, in order to try to recreate Arnold, when in reality he's maybe only got as far as creating Bernard, who is like a close approximation, but not quite there. And this is a way of him testing out maybe different versions of the consciousness to put it into a new Bernard body to actually clone Arnold, as opposed to just replicating him into Bernard, if that makes sense. That's my theory. I'm sure I got some of that wrong, but.
Well, then it's interesting that the last episode, or Jim had that moment with Bernard at the end. This is almost like Jim was like recognizing, I don't know, they're the two that we know are based on a consciousness, which kind of makes that a little bit more impactful.
Also, like the score in the scene, I thought it was really nice.
Yeah, the score throughout the whole episode I thought was pretty cool overall.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we see new Teddy enter in the Mariposa in Sweetwater, and Dolores is playing the piano. Teddy said he wants to get going on the train, and Dolores fixed the old Teddy that was, quote, weak and destined to fail. As they ask this man where Abernathy is, and the man doesn't know, Teddy just comes and shoots him straight in the face. And that's all we see of the new Teddy, which I thought was really crazy. I don't know about you guys, but these like two little scenes with Teddy, like Dolores's face said more than Teddy did, you know?
Yeah, like, it was cool. I mean, it's what I expected. I just assumed that they just put his sliders all the way, made him just a polar opposite, and he played that pretty stereotypically and well, in my opinion.
I like this Teddy.
The screen, I paused it. It said something about like a threshold being unlocked or something like that. So I think what they did, is they just exposed him to all of his past memories. And I think that is what in particular hardened him. I'm not sure, or either that or like they heightened like some aggression.
I'm pretty sure they heightened it, because remember the man with the milk, they just made him docile. Like they just turned it all the way down. So I think they just turned it all the way up for Teddy.
Gotcha. Okay. Maybe that's what it was. And yeah, like an aggression trait or something. Yeah. But yeah, the look on her face, I turned to Loki and I was like, look, she created a monster, right? That's what her face is saying. Like, what the fuck have I done?
Yeah. It kind of turned on though at the same time, right? I don't know. She kind of looked pleased. But anyway, so moving on, Ashley finds a dead Delos security officer in the lab, which looks like there had been a big battle before. Charlotte then joins him and said that it's basically been a week since the event, since the gala, and that they have Abernathy in their possession, and they dial up to the Delos security team and tell them that they have the body and the Delos team is coming. They also need to like keep Abernathy before the team gets there, so they have him nailed down into a chair, like pretty brutally, so he doesn't escape. I thought I liked Ashley's face in that scene.
This scene just felt weird to me. I don't know. I didn't really jive with it that well. It seemed like the way it was shot and like the way it was cut, it just seemed not Westworld. I don't know. I don't know how to better describe it, but it just felt really weird and out of place for me. This is one of many scenes this episode, I guess.
I think they're like overexposing us to all the gore and bodies.
Right.
I feel like this is Saw, but for uppity people or people that like want a higher standard of storyline than Saw. Like, you know, we will see that scene later where the guy gets his hand cut off.
Oh yeah.
And has to commit seppuku or harikari, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I just think that the show's getting way off the scale with the blood and gore, which was a little off-putting to me. And in particular, when they're like bolting Abernathy down to the chair, that's just like gratuitous. And it's so weird. Like, I think we talked about it earlier. That actor, he plays such like a sympathetic like version of an android, you know, of a guest, that like despite the fact that we know that he's just like playing different roles and stuff, like for whatever reason he has like a very paternal like role to him. So watching him get bolted down, I felt like genuine pity. I was like, Jesus, like they are fucking this guy up, and like for something that he can't even comprehend, like what they want out of him, you know.
And I think he's also like being personified as like the crazy grandpa that a lot of people might have in their family. And like watching that on screen makes that even like harder for the audience to accept and like swallow that, you know. I don't have the same thing, but like I really didn't feel pity for him that much because I knew his like programming was all fucked up.
Yeah.
So it's like anything to
that made it even more pitiful to me. It's like he's so fucked up, he has no idea what's going on.
They were just being more brutal to host this season, you know.
And I think that Ash's comment was supposed to speak to that, like being park security and him being from the perspective of it being like an amusement park where these are kind of like real people that they have to set up for these narratives. I feel like he thinks he has some more empathy towards them, whereas Charlotte, she kind of looks at him and she's like, what the fuck, like I think to her they're just like numbers, right? She's on the board of the company, so they're just exactly equipment.
All right, well, then we hear Akane's voice speaking as we pan over the post-battle scene at the Shogun camp. She then is bending over to Sakura and begins to cut out her heart. And she puts it in... oh, shoot, sorry about that again. Yeah, let's cut that. Shit.
Go.
I think I'm just going to smoke. It's halfway, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, we're like a quarter of the way, but whatever.
But whatever. Fuck it.
Fuck it.
Sorry. Fucking parents. All right. Okay. Let's start over again. Are you guys ready? Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, then we hear Akane speaking as we pan over the post-battle scene at the Shogun camp. We see Akane bending over Sakura and cutting out her heart. She puts it in Maeve's cut-off sleeve. The crew then soldier on and run into these soldiers who have Armistice Hector and Musashi as prisoner. They negotiate with the leader, and he says, well, let him go for Akane. But Musashi stops and instead challenges the leader named Tanaka to a duel. which he defeats Tanaka. But Akane pleads with Maeve to use her magic to help stop the fight or help Musashi, and she says she won't. That everyone deserves a chance to choose their own fate, even if their fate is death. Once again, Hiroyuki Sanada just showing that he's just such a badass in this scene, you know. But I thought the end of the scene was really interesting. After the duel, Akane says to Maeve, she says, "Hurry, you must find your child before the darkness eats us alive." And I don't really know why she said that, or I'm not really sure what the meaning of that, what the purpose of that is. Do you guys have any idea?
I'm not really sure on a deeper meaning, no. I mean, we could assume she's foreshadowing something to do with what we've been seeing happen to all the other parks, right? Like the hosts gathering themselves up and, you know, like with creating railroads, I don't know, just killing each other, essentially. Maybe they can sense that. I don't know. Maybe it hasn't hit this park yet. Maybe it's
I think given the fact that, the hosts can be actually violent now, not just towards the hosts in their narrative, but other hosts and guests. Like, I think maybe that's what she's talking about, the darkness. Like, shit is going off the rails. I know it. I know that you know it. So, get to your daughter before it goes so far off the rails that, like, there's no chance at any hope, any redemption of anything.
And with the knowledge of, like, we know that the cradle is kind of acting independently. I think it has a power to change the narrative and the I guess narrative is the best way to describe it for the show, but the narrative of certain lower level hosts, I think he can sway what their decisions are and have them move to a certain area. I don't know, whatever the power that we'll probably learn that the cradle actually has on the hosts and the whole park. So there's going to be some lasting impacts from that. But
I think there's definitely an element of, like, the cradle being involved in Maeve's programming, if it wasn't, Ford directly.
Sure.
And possibly, like, picking and prodding at some of the things that we've seen them come across. Definitely, like, everything involved with the Man in Black, it seems like the cradle and Ford's consciousness within the cradle is directly involved, right? So who knows to what extent.
Exactly.
Well, it's got to be like what Glory is, and it's got to be what this, like, land that everyone's been searching for, because we find out that the cradle is at the Delos headquarters, and that's where that's where Dolores has been going. It just seems like this mystic land to all of these different peoples and groups of hosts at Westworld. It seems like the cradle is ultimately their holy land, so to speak. And as we find out, it's kind of like heaven in a way. They live even in the afterlife. Their narratives are kept in the cradle. So it kind of makes sense in that way.
It's possible in a more general sense. It's not like she seems to have a particular interest in a particular building. Like, I think that's either the Mesa or the cradle. So, like, I don't know really the difference.
The cradle's in the Mesa, though, right? The
Is that what it is?
Is a high level top. It's where the guests first come to get dropped off, right?
Yeah.
So we see Bernard and the girl, what's her name?
Elsie,
like, feel the explosion of the train. So it's all on the same.
Because they're at Mesa and the cradle. Yeah. Okay. So
headquarters.
Yeah. So something tells me the Valley Beyond might, in general, mean like the actual train station, like the ability to leave the park. Right. And the Valley Beyond, maybe the area beyond the park, but also she is very interested in one thing in particular, and that does seem to be the cradle. Yeah, I agree with that.
Before we get too sidetracked on the last scene we talked about, I was visually really confused at the beginning, and it felt like Akane took the knife to herself.
Yeah, me
I was
too.
very confused for the first 5 minutes of that scene. So I thought she pulled her own heart out, and then I went down the rabbit hole. I was like, oh, are these hosts able to just, like, continue living without actually needing some of this because we've seen, like, Dolores and Teddy get shot at, but there's power through it, right?
Yeah.
So I thought they were taking that direction, and then we ended up finding out she didn't do any of that. So it was just very confusing. I just wanted to see if you guys felt the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was pretty poorly shot from that. I mean, like, you'd think that'd be pretty obvious, like cutting someone else's heart out, and it looked like she stabbed herself and was committing suicide, just like the soldier did. I don't get why they did
exactly. Yeah.
Not only was she super hunched over, like the knife itself looked like it was inwards, not downwards.
And she was just sawing back and forth, and you're like, damn, this is raw. She's just cutting herself open. But
I think that also reinforces the point I made maybe 1 or 2 episodes ago about how I think the hosts themselves in Samurai World or Shogun World or whatever it's called are constructed differently, where they have like actual, however inorganic or organic, but real body parts and guts and gore, right?
Right.
Because of all the swordplay and shit.
Well, we learned at the end, Elsie was saying to Bernard that machine that he gets into was made for older hosts. So we can tell that there's iterations of hosts. And if Westworld is Park 1, then you'd assume the other hosts would have, and the other parks would be a little bit more modern.
Good point. Yeah.
Can we talk about this this arc in general? Do you want to just attack this arc or
Maeve?
Did you guys feel to when she? Yeah, did you guys feel like this could all have been done in the previous episode?
When you pointed it out, I kind of agree. At least the end where they split up.
Yeah.
I feel like that end would have been a suitable end for the previous episode.
Right.
I was thinking in the context of the episode. Because, like, that would be, but the whole idea of, like, choosing your fate, right? So why would they put that in this episode along with the other storylines that we saw? So we saw the Man in Black and his daughter. That's one storyline. I guess choosing your fate. You know, I mean, we're about to get to that scene, but, you know, she talks to him about, you know, him wanting to go in there and commit suicide in a way. You know, he just wanted to go to that park. You know, the stakes are high. So I don't know. I'm trying to piece it together with everything else that we saw, because that'll be the answer as to why they kept into this episode and not the last episode. Because I mean, they try to have a theme or a narrative per episode. Mm-hmm. So this is the narrative. And on HBO when I watched it, that's what the little description is. You know, everyone, you know, the path to choose your own destiny or whatever like that. That's the theme.
It's a tagline for the show, the episode.
Yeah. So just like that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm tending to. I'm not really sure what it is or what that meaning is, but I'm curious.
No, I totally agree with what you said. In the sense of like what the point of that story or what that story became, it fits more within this episode. But for me, like I figured that was the kind of the direction it was going, and so I didn't really care that much. And so for me, it would have just been better. Yeah, exactly.
The climax of last week's episode was a kind of like displaying that she has a choice in the decision, right? So it would have been like a perfect bookend, I think. I'm talking, just the samurai world contained in one episode would have been even thematically more appropriate than putting a little bit of scenes here on the episode 6. So
I mean, unless this isn't the end. I mean, this is the end of their journey together, but it may not necessarily be the end of what we see of Musashi and Akane.
Sure. I mean,
I mean, it doesn't look like it, but I'm hoping so, because I like those two characters. I'd like to see them progress a little bit. But anyway, so, you know, as we move on, we like I said, we see the Man in Black and his daughter and Lawrence actually riding, and they find this broken wagon. And as Lawrence's men go and check out the wagon, we find out that the Man in Black kind of suspects his daughter of being a host that was sent by Ford, and kind of questions why she's there. And she basically tells him, like, no, I'm not a host, then I'm not leaving the park without you. And she realizes that the wagon was a fake wagon, a honeypot, I think she calls it. And these intruders come, and she basically fights off all these intruders, kind of proving she's kind of a bad bitch in her own right, too.
Yeah.
I love the idea of him thinking she's a host. Because, I didn't think of that. And right when it happened, I was like, oh, yeah, of course. That's brilliant, of course.
Yeah.
Like,
why not, right? Yeah.
After everything he's seen, like, why wouldn't he think that?
Yeah.
I was surprised.
The scene was great. I mean, it was okay, actually. That wasn't great. It started off very, like, positive, and it trended, like, negative. Like, so the first half of the scene was very believable. Like, Man in Black thinking that this is a host. Like, he's on his guard, right? He's been, like, repeatedly shot at, like, been attempted to be killed, whatever. And then it goes off and it tails off into the conversation between him and his daughter, which I somewhat bought their relationship that they're trying to build, but not really. But I definitely didn't believe it when he told her that they were going to go to the beach the next day, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but yeah, for me, like you guys, like I've just mentioned, the first half is a lot better than the second half. And I didn't really see why introduce her just to ditch her? I guess she's got a bigger point to the story. But it would have been cool to see them, like, I think it would have been really fun to see them travel together to kind of use their skills and try to one-up each other the whole time. I think that'd been a fun plot device they could use.
Yeah.
I think I thought the second half was also negative and like a negative trend and not as good as the first half, but for a different reason. I think what happened is like I actually bought it when he started feeling something because shit, his eyes were welling up, right? He looked like
that's right.
He was getting upset, right? And that and the way he kind of talked about his wife and his daughter, like however much of a hard ass he is, when he talked about them, he didn't talk about it in like the way you would expect like a grizzled hard ass to have talked about it. Like it just happened and I'm over it and, you know, like fuck him or kind of thing, right? Like he obviously does care that his wife killed herself because of him. And he obviously does care that he's estranged with his daughter, right? So when that happened, I actually bought it. What actually pissed me off was when she wakes up the next morning and he ducked out because I was like, well, what the fuck? I could have bought that he did all that and wanted to like end his mission and run off with her, however abrupt that would have been. But what I really don't get is why he would lie about it and then just leave without her. Like, you know, that's it. None of it kind of adds up to me. It helped me understand his character.
To ease her into like a sense of security, so she's not on guard the whole night, and you know he can't just slip her, right? So she's rested. It basically convinces her to drink with him, so she might have drank a little too much and given the opportunity to dip out ASAP.
Yeah, but why? But why did he want to bail? And like, why even like give her all that lip service and lie? Is what I'm saying.
I think it's just to characterize like how scummy he actually is. I think that's what it's really doing.
Maybe.
I think so. We haven't actually got to that point yet. That's like later in the episode.
Well, yeah.
But I think he actually does. So what he says to before exactly is like if I went to the beach with you and we left this place and I left this place burning behind us, are we even? Mm-hmm. And I think he's still set on his mission to destroy the park. She wants to take him out and he's not ready to go. He needs to destroy the park before he leaves. So I think him leaving her is like, I can't do this mission if you're in the way. You're gonna detract and want to send me home, and I need to destroy this place before I go home. And I think that's what it was. That's why he left her, and it's not. Yeah, so I think he wants to carry on his mission. She just wants to get him out. She doesn't give a shit about that place. She just wants him to go. I mean, as she was saying, the whole reason why she was there was because she didn't want him to come out here and quote commit suicide by robot, right? And she didn't want this to be the end, and she regretted blaming her mother's death on him. Mm-hmm. So she wants him out. He needs to destroy the place. So that's what I saw it as, and that was the only way. Both. He wants both, but the only way he only wants his daughter if it comes at the cost of the park.
Right.
You know, he wants to destroy the park first. But I love that scene. I mean, if we're gonna talk about it, I love that scene.
I did too.
Because there was a little piece before that where he hands her a bottle and he says, I thought you didn't drink. And then she says, oh, you just don't drink in the real world. Which was kind of interesting because every time he'd go to Jim Delos, he would offer him a drink and he'd say it's too early. And then at the very end, he started drinking. At the very end, he said, I don't want to do this anymore with you. He started drinking. So I thought that was funny. And they talked about, she admitted being a fan of the Raj. So she's not a good person, just for the record. But so she was at the Raj.
Don't white knight us.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I probably love the Raj. Who am I kidding? But the Man in Black's like, you were afraid of the elephants.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, Mom was afraid of the elephants. But I think it's funny that they brought up the elephants because El Lazo talked about the elephants being tied down. Remember? It just seems like that story that El Lazo told a few episodes back before all the men committed suicide was about the elephants being tied down at
when
the
they're
circus.
young.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I don't know. I just kind of like that's an interesting connection there too. I like those kinds of gaps.
We got elephants.
We got elephants, man.
Yeah.
In the Raj. And that's what the place is called, the Raj. I was curious.
Yeah, the Raj. That's
The Raj.
It's a good name.
She also told him she went to the pleasure palaces, which that must be really weird for any dad here. And she kind of like rubbed it in. She's like, I'm old enough.
It's like her sexuality is like a point of contention between them two. So it's using it as like a weapon.
That was funny.
Yeah.
So now we see Elsie and Bernard, and they're walking towards the Delos headquarters.
Along the railway.
Yeah, along the railway. Bernard admits that, or says that he admires Elsie's optimism, and then says that if anyone could right the ship, that it would be her.
Yeah,
which I thought was interesting there. And she says that the Q&A system requests keep getting blocked by something called the Cradle, who Bernard says is a backup of the host narratives, and it's apparently fighting back on the requests, and that they can't access the source code remotely, that they actually would have to go in person. They have to go to the Cradle in person. Honestly, man, that whole scene, I got lost in all the gibberish technology. Like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just not like smart enough to keep up with that, but it just, I kind of got lost in all that gibberish.
Wait, I'm sorry.
Well,
where does the scene end? The scene ends where?
The scene ends when Bernard says that they have to go find the source code in person.
In the Cradle. Yeah, they got to go to the Cradle.
We got to go to the Cradle.
In your defense, it is all gobbledygook. It doesn't actually make any sense.
Good.
But,
all right.
Yeah.
All right. That actually makes me feel a lot better, because I was like, I don't know what's going on now. I guess I'm not smart enough for Westworld anymore.
Like, there's no way that she could be looking at all that shit coming in real time and that quickly know exactly what the problem is, happening. And then be like, oh, I can't see the source code. Like, oh, it's all jumbled up or some bullshit. Like, it doesn't make sense.
I also noticed that those two, when they were walking to that area, they walked by the hats. Did you see the black and white hats?
Yeah.
On the wall?
So they're like definitely going through the welcome area, right?
The guest services area.
Yeah. They're as close to the real world as like you can be in Westworld.
Right. All right. So after that, we see Maeve and her crew find Snow Lake. They finally arrive at Snow Lake, and you finds the access point with the underground tunnel. Then we see Akane burning Sakura's heart in this little grotto area. And she and Musashi decide to stay behind in Snow Lake, denying Maeve's request to join them. Just a really quick little scene there. I was upset that they left. I mean, I kind of get it. I get it, but like,
too many characters to keep with. I get that too, but like, it would have been nice to see them on the journey.
Yeah, but it was nice. I like the exchange. I mean, I'm gonna miss the interactions between Akane and Maeve. Yeah, they were great. And even this very last interaction was just great. And her telling her, like, well, now I'm deciding to choose my fate, which is going to be death, which I thought was really pretty. And for some reason, I liked how Hector bowed to Musashi. I liked that mutual respect they finally showed at the end.
It was for some reason. It was more of a nod than a bow. Yeah.
Whatever. It's the same thing, right? It was an extended nod, which is borderline a bow. But I don't know why I enjoyed that.
Yeah. It was cool.
All right. Well, then we see the interaction with the Man in Black and his daughter, which we talked about. So then after that, we see Elsie and Bernard again, finally reach the Cradle. Bernard says that he remembers bringing something or someone there, and he has a flashback of grabbing that control unit like we saw a few episodes back. He enters into this device that can apparently read host data directly, and it extracts his control unit. He falls into a daze and he wakes up on the train coming into Sweetwater, and it's just like basically walking through a normal day of Sweetwater, normal day in the town. Do you have any comments on that, guys?
I just thought it was cool. Like it's running simulations, I guess, of what it knows guests in the park, like their narratives are. Mm-hmm. So. Like, I think hypothetically, like assuming the Cradle was working as intended, it's probably a place where they back up all the hosts, right? I think we know that. But then also can run them on simulations to help figure out like what narratives work, what don't, what the park can be doing. So it seems kind of natural that like if you're a host and you get your consciousness dropped in there, you're just now another host in the park, but like a completely simulated version of the park.
Is there like an instance for each of the hosts running simultaneously throughout, like for everyone inside the Cradle? Like, is each host running their own storyline and they're all connected, or they are just like independently working in there and then somehow connected in this? So that made no sense, right? You get
no, I think I get what you're saying. No, I think they're all part of it. They're hosts. All the hosts that are in the Cradle are all running in the same shared universe on their own narratives, but but I think you can view it from above and figure out like what conflicts there are or what shit doesn't work and stuff like that. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I think somehow like Ford, well, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. All right. So then after that, we we really quickly we see Ashley get joined by the Delos team that they've been waiting to come rescue them, and they look like a bunch of tough talking dudes.
I'm so over that. Like,
yeah,
that cliche gets played up so much. Like the badass, sorry,
the military guy. Yeah,
I'm in control.
Yeah.
It's my jurisdiction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the only difference is this guy's got like Irish or Scottish accent, so he sounds even more like grizzled. So
yeah,
it's like adds a coolness factor to him. But
even more douchey. Yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
So what's your name again? Ashley?
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
We got ourselves an Ashley here.
It would have been funny if he did the Chris Pratt from Avengers thing and start acting all tough for like, oh, you can call me Ash.
Yeah, that would have been funny. That would have been hilarious.
Anyways, all right, but then we see Maeve and the crew, and they're now joined by that Shogun armistice who comes with them. I don't remember her name. If you guys do, they come out of the tunnel and arrive at where Maeve's old homestead was, and she says that she has to go and get the daughter alone. As she's walking over, we see the Man in Black and Lawrence and their crew actually get attacked by the Ghost Nation. And as they run around, we see Maeve again walking up to her old home and finds her daughter on the porch. She's playing with her dolls, and Maeve begins to talk to her, and she tells a story about her dolls. And right as they're talking, the daughter says, "Mom," and her new host mother arrives. And Maeve is completely devastated as the Ghost Nation again come and attack and play out that narrative that she had flashbacks to so many times. She grabs her daughter and runs to escape the Ghost Nation, and one of the warriors catches up with her and says to follow them because they're meant for the same path. Mm. Her crew arrive and fight off the Ghost Nation just as Lee calls for help with the phone that he acquired from the last episode.
But they're still running at the end.
Yeah, they're still running.
Yeah, again, this whole scene went from like positive to negative for me.
Yeah, how so?
I understand, okay, like we need Maeve to go do this thing on her own. I think they could have used some sort of better reasoning and better dialogue other than just like, I know every inch of this land, you know, and she's like, I could do this on my own. She could have been just more direct, like, y'all just chill here, this is something I have to do, like, it's my daughter or something. I don't know. It would have been more direct rather than some lame reasoning. The reveal was pretty cool that she's got another mother, basically, her daughter. So we'll see what Maeve does with her powers here to open her mind. Maybe she might think that's not ethical anymore and decide against it. And the final scene of Maeve getting chased, I thought was just shitty. Like, poorly like shot and just kind of awkward. I'm not sure like why they use some of that, you know, suspense if the Indians are just going to talk to them. It could have been like unnecessarily creating drama and suspense in a scene that didn't really call for it.
Well, my take on it was that is a recurring narrative that just happens. Like, that's a thing, a storyline you can be a part of is like go on an Indian hunt and then save the lone widow and her child, you know, from the Indians.
Sure,
but so it was supposed to play out that way.
Did they not deliver a different message though? Like their whole intent was to run into Maeve and deliver this message saying like we're both on the same path, right?
You think so?
No, it looked to me that's her narrative. That her character, she's there with her daughter. This place gets attacked, just like Sonny said. This is a narrative that gets played. The Man in Black came and took advantage of and just shot them instead.
No, I get that. I'm talking about in the moment that we saw, not the past. I understand that this is a preset narrative, but
right. Yeah. But you're saying this Indian, what he said to her, is particular to this situation.
Correct. Yeah. So it's like they built up all the suspense and like show us a scene of, you know, the other host mom being surrounded, and like. At the end of the day, we know all he wanted to do was deliver this message. It's like this faux drama and attention created just to create that, just to throw the audience off, and then all he does is ends up talking about how he wants to assist, or they're on the same journey.
Well, no, but my interpretation of that was that that's how he like gets them to come with him peacefully in a normal narrative. Like I didn't see any meaning. Yeah, like I didn't see any meaning behind that statement. Because I don't know what that means. They're on the same path, like because it's the Indians both seem to be able to resist her, yet don't also seem to be on a completely independent narrative, like or acting on their own free will. So I feel like that was part of the narrative. But you might be correct. Like, yeah, and if you are correct that has some specific meaning to her, then then the whole scene is just kind of contrived in that sense.
Okay. Overall, I agree with you though, man. I liked when she came up and saw her daughter, and I was surprised her daughter was going to be there. So when I saw her daughter, I was like, all right, so this host has just been sitting here playing with her dolls for weeks or whatever. And then, oh yeah, she does have a new mom. That makes sense. She left this narrative like over a year ago, right? She was the maitre d' at the Mariposa for like a couple years. So I like that. Like, I didn't even think of that. I was like, oh shit, yeah, of course you would have like a new mom program, so I enjoy that. But I agree with you. It's almost like, I don't know, this is gonna sound bad, but there's almost like this trope of like the native species are always like in on they have some inside information. They always are like,
they're always tuned with Mother Earth.
There's
the more spiritual, there's a mystic, and it's just like
that always gets associated with that. Yeah.
So I'm really annoyed if like the Ghost Nation the whole time is like in on this whole act, and it's just because it's just like, of course they are. They're the people we never talk to, nobody associates with, and it's just, of course they're gonna know the way out of Westworld.
Also,
so if that's the truth,
add to your point, Jason. Like, there is the scene right before she sits down next to her daughter. The way the camera's angled on both of those shots. To me, on the first watch, I felt like they were trying to allude to maybe this could be some sort of like vision, in the same sense that Bernard sees something. It's being displayed to her. So I thought the daughter wasn't going to be there. So I almost didn't believe it when I saw her on the camera with her.
Like she's like in a different time.
Yeah, that's what I thought they were playing at. So even then, again, the way they was structured and shot, it was just creating all this tension and drama.
That would have been more interesting, as if it was empty and she just had visions and she was getting confused, like Bernard and Dolores, of what time, because she hasn't been there yet. She hasn't reached the point where she doesn't know, is this now? She hasn't said that yet, the way Bernard and Dolores has. So that would have been really cool if like going to her old life like sparked that like confusion of what time is now.
Well, I mean, I would have preferred that, because to be honest, and not to brag, I called this like end of season 1. The minute she got off the train, all I could think about was like, girl, when you get there, she's gonna have a new mom and she's not gonna know who the fuck.
Right.
This is a bad idea from the get-go.
I didn't think she'd be alive at all. I mean, honestly, I thought like the daughter wasn't gonna be there. That was it.
Well, I thought like that was a distinct possibility if when you consider all of them, but from this point of view of the story, I don't think they would have let that happen. That would have been a boring.
Yeah, I think it's more like to the point that the story of her finding her daughter was not a good enough reason for us to see this whole character development. They could have maybe come up with a better plot point.
Because we don't know the daughter,
journey, right? Because the point of her finding her daughter is just so we can experience her getting the new powers and understanding her how she fits in the subconscious, right? So,
but like we don't know the daughter, so why would I give a shit if she
exactly? Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Her daughter could be a brat for all I know. Like maybe her daughter sucks. I don't want her to be added to the crew. Maybe she sucks. Maybe she's the word. Yeah.
Maybe she tweets Donald Trump and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Should be terrible.
Yeah. All right. So then we see after that we see Dolores and Teddy are on the train. Dolores asks Teddy if she should run from this place. And Teddy said that he used to not want to leave, but she changed that about him. He gives the technician that we've seen a gun with one bullet as they let his train car loose, which is just full of explosives. The Delos, this special ops team, come in, they hack into the system, and they get the map up and running just as they see the train approaching the headquarters and exploding. Then after that we see Bernard again walking through Sweetwater, and he sees Dolores and Teddy on their normal loop. He enters the Mariposa following this dog, and when he gets into the Mariposa, he turns to the man playing the piano, and it's Ford saying, "Hello, old friend." End of episode.
So the point of the train was to probably open the main doors of the park?
Yeah.
Right?
Or like, I guess, destroy enough of it that they can get in unimpeded.
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I don't think I believe for a second they thought that would do any damage to the mesa or the cradle or anything like that.
Yeah,
it was probably just to open the actual entrance to the park. Okay.
Yeah, just the way in. Yeah, well, I mean, there was an interesting end.
I mean,
interesting. And
I'm now in incredible anticipation for next episode, right? Because I had no idea Anthony Hopkins was in this season. I don't know if they kept that a production secret or not, but it wasn't. It didn't occur to me that he'd be here, and so I'm so glad that he's back. Right?
It occurred to me. My prediction came true.
Yeah.
What do you know?
That dog was his dog. That was the host dog that he made from last season, which I thought was cool. Yeah, I'm excited, man. I want to see Ford again. He's like the most. He's the puppet master of this whole show, right? So it's good to see him. Good to see him back. Or it seemed nearly impossible to tell the story, or at least give us some semblance of an ending of the story without somehow bringing Ford or Arnold back. You know,
exactly. Either the history or reveal that they are still around in some other capacity and can tell us the plot for us, because we're obviously too stupid to figure it out.
This is like maybe the San Junipero effect. So instead of bringing consciousness to robots outside of the cradle, the only way to have immortality is to go into the cradle, and that's where your mind's able to live in a less restricted manner and able to associate. So it could be that could be where this show's going, and that's how he's got control and fidelity in being Ford. You know, he's just got a backup in there.
And so now I wouldn't be surprised if the consciousness that Bernard printed at that lab was Ford's. And then that's why he had to order everybody to die, because they can't know that, you know, they created it for Ford or whatever. Right. And he put it in the cradle as one of his last acts.
It seems like that, right? Because that scene where he's building it and all the drones kill all the lab techs, those are freshly dead bodies. So that would seem to be like right when the gala happened. Yeah. Which would be right before Ford had himself shot. So he had his consciousness saved before his, you know, physical body was killed. Yeah. And then Bernard, when he went into the cradle, he told Elsie, I brought something or someone here. So it's the same thing. He brought a thing, which was a person's consciousness, which was Ford. So it's kind of cool. I mean, I'm excited to see where it goes, because it's like, this is a direction I did not think the show would go. You know, it just this immortality aspect, but they're doing it in a kind of an exciting way.
So everything that's happening now is a distraction, so Ford could sneak his way into the cradle. Like,
it seems like he was controlling everything, right? Because he had his fingers in every single host's mind now, because he's in the cradle, right?
Yeah. So he probably himself cleared that space so he could have room to grow and, like, I don't know, expand that environment within the cradle. I don't know, that could be potential.
So I guess that was Ford remotely hacking Lawrence's daughter. Yeah. At the end, right? Saying,
and young Ford, and even Alonzo, or whatever his name was, Lazo. And his men. Programming them to all shoot themselves. Yeah.
So you gotta remember what all those things that he said, right? All those things that he said through those people. They're his little miniature version of himself. What is it like? It begins where you end and it ends where you begin. And then the girl said, if you're moving forward, you're moving backwards.
Yeah. Or to move forward, you need to move backwards or something.
Yeah. All right. I got to go back and see what all of the...
those moments are.
Yeah, I got to see what those moments are. 'Cause it's probably going to piece together something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I can't wait for next one. I think next one might redeem the whole season for me.
Right. What is
until the next one.
Right? So there's 3 more left? No, 4 more left?
4 more.
8, 9, 10. 4. Yeah. That's going to be exciting, man. I'm pumped. Cool, guys.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
It's a short one.
I got more thoughts. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. You can find us at nocampspodcast.podbean.com, on Twitter at nocampspodcast. I'm Akash, and I'm on Twitter at Akash0902. Sunny's on Twitter at Sunny_Gunna. And of course, you have to come to the podcast to listen to Jason. As it should be.
Yep.
Wait, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace.
Bye.